Hi, guys.
Hey there.
Hey, Hi.
Thank you so much for being here. I'm really excited to talk. And yeah, just want to kind of jump in by kind of reading some of your bios so that folks who are watching have a sense of who you are and the cool stuff you do. And Ulysses, we'll start with you.
awesome.
Ulysses Asuna. Asuna, is that how you say your last name?
Yep.
Ulysses Asuna is the founder of Influencer Press, a PR firm that works with influencers with thousands or even millions of followers and puts them on major publications like Forbes, Inc., Entrepreneur Magazine, etc. He has been featured on Forbes, Inc., The Huffington Post, Business Rockstars, The Next Web, Success.com, and is also a contributor to Entrepreneur Magazine, Success Magazine, Business.com, and The Huffington Post. So he's done a lot of stuff, and it's all about media.
Yep.
Corey Huff, let's talk about you. In 2009, Corey started The Abundant Artist as a way of teaching internet marketing to his artist friends who are asking him for help. Since then, he has helped dozens of artists go from never sold anything to now selling pieces monthly or weekly. Some of his artist friends and clients have gone on to sell their work for $20,000 or more. Corey teaches artists to dispel the starving artist myth by using the web to sell art directly to their fans. If you want to get into a gallery or museum, the marketing skills Corey can help you do that. Building your own business online can actually be complementary to a gallery business for the right artists and galleries. Jennifer Blanchard. Jennifer Blanchard is a best-selling author, a speaker, and a book strategy and success mindset coach for multi-passionate writers and authors. She's been featured in the Huffington Post, Copy Blogger, StoryFix, Pro Blogger, and a bunch of podcasts and telesummits. Can't say that word either. In any case, thank you guys so much for being here. I'm super excited to chat. I know we discussed earlier that I look like I've zoomed in from, the outer rings of Pluto. Pluto doesn't have rings, does it?
Sure. We'll say it does.
Yeah, no idea.
We'll see. All right. So we're going to be kind of talking about this idea of the mindset of abundance. And I think what's really cool is that all of you in some respects come from sort of the perspective of, art and what art means and how to sort of live your art, how to sell your art, and how to sort of be with your art in the world as a sort of productive, successful soul. So I'd love to kind of get started, I guess, by just sort of hearing from each of you kind of how you got to where you are today, just in a few words. I mean, I read those bios, but bios don't really say that much, right? Maybe Ulysses, do you want to start? And maybe you should start by telling us how old you are.
Yeah. So I'm 20 years old. I don't look 20. I look a lot older just because of the beard. But the way I got started is, I was just on the internet and I saw a random ad, and the ad was kind of fishy. It was talking about like kind of like a get rich quick scheme. It was showcasing like the cars, the lifestyle and stuff like that. And then at the time I didn't know what I was getting myself into, but I was like, man, I want that. So when I saw it, I like immediately started doing just research on like online marketing and stuff like that. And I couldn't buy his program at the time because it was expensive, and I was like 18. But yeah, like after that, I just kind of like fell in love with like online marketing because you don't have to go to college to do stuff online. So after that, and then I found out Neil Patel, and if you guys are in the online marketing space, he's probably one of the best, if not the best, online marketers. My personal opinion, and he's like, you're bound to find him if you do any type of research like that. So I just said to myself one day, I was like, man, whatever industry I'm gonna be in, I want to be the Neil Patel of that. So and yeah, that's basically it. And now I'm doing PR.
I love it. Okay, Corey, tell us about you.
Yeah. So I have been an artist and a performer since I was a little kid. My first play was The Wizard of Oz, and I played one of the Munchkins. And I went to college for theater, and all my friends were artists and performers. And I was the weirdo that read business books while I was in theater school. And when I graduated and moved up here to Portland, Oregon, where I live now, I got a job working for a little internet marketing company, and just started learning about online marketing while I was performing and stuff. And my friends started asking me to help them get people out to their shows and, sell their tickets and sell art and stuff. And so I just started doing that on the side. It was a side hustle. And eventually, after a few years, I decided that I was going to quit the day job and make helping my artist friends make money my primary gig. So I've been doing that for the last 4 years.
And your artist friends all thanked you, I'm sure.
Some of them did.
Sure. And Jennifer, tell me about you.
Well, I always like to say I've been writing since I was old enough to hold a pencil. So pretty much my whole life. And I always dreamed of writing a novel. That was sort of the thing I just always saw myself doing. And so finally, years and years went by and I just procrastinated. I like to say I'm like or I used to be anyway, the biggest procrastinating writer in the world. And now I've completely transformed that and become the author and the writer I always imagined myself being. And my journey for the whole online marketing thing was really just, I was doing day jobs in online marketing and working for publications and companies doing their marketing. And so I just sort of used those skills in my writing and online, stuff. And then it sort of just became a natural extension of what I do. And now people are like, oh, were you like born with marketing skills? Which I'm like, no, but it's just, I guess, natural at this point that it feels that way. So that's a good thing for me, I guess. So
I love it. Jennifer, one of the things you do is you kind of coach others in the space of mindset. So I think it would be great to start with you to kind of just ask you, what do you think mindset is? And why does mindset matter when it comes to success as an artist or just as a person?
Yeah. So I always say that mindset is really more an identity than anything else. So success is an identity. It's really how you see yourself at that next level. And so like, if you feel like, you want to get to some place, but you're not there yet, there's a gap. And that gap is getting your mindset there first. So for me, like that was the thing that changed everything in my writing life, was that I just realized I was such a negative person and had such, even though I was positive in a lot of ways, but I had a lot of like negative programming around what was possible for me as a writer, just that whole writers are broke and writers are poor and, that whole thing. And so I really just decided one day that I needed to bust out of that because it's total BS anyway. And I just decided to create, I sort of been following the law of attraction stuff for a long time and just sort of learned that like you can create anything in your mind that you want to have happen. And so I just started to sort of use that as a way of focusing myself. And then by sort of having that mindset and sort of stepping into that identity of like, okay, well, if I want to be this next level person, or if I want to have this next level goal, what would I need to be doing to get there? Or how would I need to think to get there? And that was kind of what I started doing. And now I teach that to writers because I find that especially writers tend to have that, and multi-passionate writers, especially because they've been told their whole lives there's something wrong with them. Because multi-passionate, you have to pick one thing. And if you don't have one thing you're good at, then there must be something wrong with you. Or if you can't choose one thing, then you're flaky or, whatever. And so I just wanted to prove to them that like, no, that's just, a different identity, is somebody who has a specialization. And multi-passionate writers are people who want to do lots of things. And so that for me was, the mindset is so important because writers like that often have just a lot of like self-limiting beliefs about themselves, and they just have like lack of confidence and things like that. And so because I was sort of always just doing this stuff and going after my dreams, I sort of built that confidence in myself just by going after what I wanted and achieving it. So now I sort of backtrack and teach that to other people because I think that's the missing link in so many things. And especially with, creating the success that you want in your writing life or as an artist or whatever.
So do you think there is this idea that there's sort of this one mindset for success that we have to figure out, because otherwise we're kind of giving ourselves, crappy negative input?
I wouldn't say that there's just one, because I feel like success is going to be different for each person. So like what one person would consider success, another person wouldn't, they would want something else. So it's really about building the mindset around what you want and you achieving that goal. So whether it's, I'm going to turn my novels into movies and get them on the big screen, or whether it's just, I just want to write a novel, like, totally different mindsets, but still similar in the fact that you have to believe in yourself and you have to believe that it's possible for you to do whatever it is you want to do. So I would say it's definitely similar, but it still is going to be more custom based on the person and what they want. And, the identity that they want for themselves. Because every writer or artist wants something different, I would think. So,
Okay, so Ulysses, talk to me about what it's like to have success when you're this young. And so much of your success has been built on kind of helping basically artists and influencers have their own success sort of featured and highlighted and spread out into the world, right? So what has it taught you about success, I guess, working for others' success so much and also coming from it from such a young age?
So I guess for me, I don't see like I'm there yet. You know, there's always something more that you have to do. And even then, like even if you do achieve success, there's like I don't think as a person you ever feel it. Like there's never, and if you do hit that that moment where like I made it, then that's it. Like you kind of just plateau. And you don't want to get to that. You don't want to get to where you plateau. So for me, there's always something on my to-do list. There's always something that, you know, I'm striving to look forward to. Because if I'm being honest with myself, the goals that I had when I was just starting off, I finished all of them except for one. And the one that I haven't finished is, you know, becoming a multimillionaire. So I haven't done that one yet. But like all of the other ones, like, you know, get on these major publications, work with all these, you know, great people. Like if I were to die tomorrow, my life is complete. You know, so I'm like extremely grateful for where I'm at, and I think that's a huge thing too. Because if you're not grateful for where you're at or like what you're doing in life, then you'll never be able to enjoy it as much. And I constantly write. I have a list in my room of like things that I read to myself every morning, just so that I'm aware. You know, because usually when you're you're doing business or you're doing anything in life, you kind of get caught up in it, and you don't remember like what really matters in life. So one of the things that I have is like my family. So I'm always trying to just because I work at home, you know, doesn't mean like I'm always around with my family. So having that as a reminder allows me to, like, if my mom comes home or my dad comes home or my brothers, you know, I'll take them to their games. I'll support them any way I can. So that way I still live a life that's like meaningful. So yeah, hopefully that answered the question. I think I went off track, but yeah.
No, I love it. So Corey, talk to me about success when you're an artist. You know, there's this huge idea about, you know, artists must be starving. You know, real artists don't make any money. There is no way to actually make money as an artist. I mean, there's all this stuff, and basically your whole work is trying to refute that. So talk to me about where this idea comes from and then how you can kind of beat it to the ground.
Okay, so I want to tell two stories. One is about a guy named Henri Mauger, and the other story that I want to tell is about a bunch of artists that nobody's ever heard of. So there's a writer named Henri Mauger, and he wrote a book called A Day in the Life of a Bohemian. And this was in the mid-1800s. He lived in Paris. And he wrote this series of short essays about his friends. Essentially, they were fictionalized versions of his friends. That they were all like struggling writers and performers and artists and stuff. And they were trying to make it. And they were in the stories. They all talked about how underappreciated they were, and nobody understood how great they were. And he sort of lionized them as these amazing people that were just misunderstood. And the book was wildly popular. And it's inspired a play, which inspired an opera called La Bohème, which was a very famous opera, which inspired an American musical called Rent, which is sort of a big deal.
I never knew that all of those things were connected in any way.
Yeah.
Wow.
So that all comes from Mauger's early stories. So the funny thing is, like, at the time that he was alive, his book and his play was so popular that like all the wealthy people in Paris would go down to the Latin Quarter and they would dress like the poor artists and hang out at the cafes and like slum it with the artists. It became this really cool, chic thing to do, to pretend to be poor. And he died penniless. He died broke. That was the only thing that he ever did that was successful. And the funny thing is in the introduction to the book, he says that Bohemia, the state of being a starving artist, is meant to be a phase in an artist's life. And at some point you either join the academy, which is at the time was like what you did when you became a professional, you joined the academy, or you went to the Hotel Dieu, which is the insane asylum, or the morgue, you die. So what he essentially was saying, and the way I interpret what he was saying is, at some point you do what the professionals do, or you go insane or you die. Right? It's not meant to be like the starving artist experience is not meant to be a permanent experience. So what do the professionals do? Back in 2009, when I started my blog, I had been starting to help some friends sell stuff online. And I was like, okay, well, I'm going to write a blog about this and just about my experiences with online marketing and working with creative people. And I'm just going to like share some experiences and do some exploration. So I started asking my artist friends, okay, who do you know that's successful? Introduce me to them and I'll interview them and I'll write a blog post about it. And we just started growing from there. And there were some things that came up over and over again. There are thousands of artists out there that you've never heard of who are making, $50,000, $60,000 all the way up to $400,000, $500,000, $600,000 or more a year. And nobody's ever heard of them. They've never been written up in the New York Times. They're just doing their thing with their core group of collectors and supporters. And they're not famous, but they're making a great living. They might own the house and have a couple of kids and a family that they're supporting. And they're just like regular, normal people. And those are the artists that nobody, like when you go to art school, they don't teach you how to make a living. They don't teach you what professional artists do. And so these artists are the ones that have figured it out. And my business literally just came from, okay, I have some marketing skills. How do my marketing skills match up with these other successful artists? And how can I teach other artists to do what these artists are doing? Right. So cut through all of the BS, like if you make money from your art, then you're selling out and your art is worthless. Like none of that means anything. All of the meaning and that we attribute to fine art and all of the way that we put artists on a pedestal is actually marketing done by people at very high level, like the big auction houses that sell art for millions and millions of dollars. That what they do is they pick an artist and they pump them up to be really famous. They grow their brand like crazy, right? And so that they can sell that artist's work for millions of dollars. And then they keep pumping that artist up so that the collectors can resell those artists' work for more money so that it becomes an investment tool. That is the top like 20% of the art market. And there's another 80% of artists that make a living who don't do any of that stuff at all, right? And so you get artists who are selling for millions and millions. And so everybody thinks that if they can't sell their work for millions, they can't make a living. But that's not the way it works at all.
Okay, so what kind of a sort of mindset shift has to happen for an artist to realize that they don't have to be like living in poverty and they can, be making a great living wage doing what they want to be doing?
Right. So mindset shifts come about in two ways. They come out internal to external, which is where maybe the light goes on and you just decide that you're going to believe you can make money, right? Like Jennifer, you talked about having that, you just decided that you're going to change it, right? And I think that comes from doing spiritual work or, maybe doing therapy or resolving whatever issues you have around money. And then there's also external to internal, which is what happened for me. I started learning how people make money and I tried it. I did, okay, what's the smallest step that I can take? And then when it worked, I went, oh gosh, like if I can do this once, I can probably do it again and again and again, right? And so that's what I do with the artists who come through our programs is I say, here, can you get your first online sale in 30 days? If you can, then you can do it again the next 30 days and again and again and again. And when you have that experience, like my buddy Jason over at Internet Business Mastery, Jason Van Orden, he calls it the money moment, right? When you suddenly realize like there's no magic to it. It's literally just like show people your stuff and ask them if they want to buy it. Yeah.
I love it. The money moment. That's awesome. So Ulysses, can you kind of weigh in on this idea of kind of mindset in terms of success? What have you seen sort of in your last few years of sort of building this career at a young age? What have you seen in terms of things that have helped you learn about how mindset can really help you as you start on what I'm sure is going to be a long career?
Yeah. So, before I even got started, I wanted to become a psychology major. I want to become a
Okay.
psychologist. So I was like totally into the mind and how that works. And that helped me out a buttload when I was starting because, it doesn't really matter what you're doing in life. There's going to be obstacles. Things aren't going to go your way. Life sucks at times. So like, it's really, really important that you have a strong mindset and you're kind of just like fixed on like, it doesn't matter what happens. You're going to overcome it. So I can give like an example of what I went through back in high school. And I know high school isn't as bad as like most stuff in life, but it's a great example for me because I use that example every time when
Hey, high school can be really rough.
it is rough at times. It is rough at times. So, back when I was in high school, you have all these classes that you have to take and then you get into like relationships. And that was like a big thing for me. So I was in a relationship. I was dumped, and then that really hurt my ego. And at that point, I was barely getting started into business. So every time I would go to school, my ego was like it was so bad that I would start getting anxiety from it. I would start getting panic and sweat attacks, and it was horrible, all because of a breakup. So what I learned then is like having that mindset is like super powerful because I already had that notion that every time I go to school, every time I saw the girl with somebody else or whatever, I was going to have a sweat attack. I was going to have a panic attack. It just wasn't going to go my way. So knowing that, I reverse engineered. Like if I made myself believe that every time, I saw this certain person, like I would get this result, then maybe I can reverse engineer that and make myself believe, the opposite. So I
Hmm.
did that. Like right at first, I tried it out. Did it work? No, I still got panic attacks and sweat attacks and whatever. But after a while of making myself believe, that like there's honestly no danger there, then it just reinforced who I am as a person. And that simple moment in life helped me for all the other moments in life because then I came up with a one-liner. So like if I'm having a bad business deal or whatever, I always tell myself this one-liner, and it's a test focus. So that little one-liner helps me out so much because if I'm arguing with a friend, if I tell myself that one-liner, I'm automatically thinking about the bigger picture. So if it's a test, then I need to focus on what really matters. It's not that I'm having the argument with my friend. It's that I'm putting this argument down so that way our friendship is still intact. So little things like that really, really help because in business, things aren't going to go your way. And if you have something that can make yourself just it clicks, and then you can overcome that, then it really, really helps out. Because if not, you're going to be in like a downward spiral, and things aren't going to go your way for weeks, maybe even months. So it's really important to find out when you're having those bad moments, and train yourself on how to come out of that really, really quickly. Because if you don't, you can stay in that downward spiral for a very long time.
Absolutely. I think staying in that downward spiral is something that maybe we've all experienced a time or two, and it's rough getting out of that.
Yeah, super tough. That's why it's best to get out of it as soon as possible before you get down that go down that road.
Mhm. Jennifer, I kind of want to ask you about one thing you talk about. You talk about this idea of sort of being all in or all out. Can you tell me what this is all about?
Sure. So you probably heard people say that you've got to be all in, and basically what they mean is there's no backup plan. And that's how I sort of look at, I mean, myself especially, but this is how I try to teach writers to think is you don't need a backup plan. So I feel like a lot of the times what I see out there is the writers will be like, oh, I'm going to go down the traditional publishing path for 6 months, and if I don't get an agent or if I don't whatever, then I'll just self-publish, or then I'll just do this other thing. And it's like, no, you either want the traditional publishing deal and you want that road, or you don't. So if that's something you feel called to have, like you just have this desire inside to want to be represented by an agent and have a traditional publisher, then why would you put that time frame on it and say it has to be within 6 months, or I'm just going to give up? Like that to me is not all in. That's like saying I'm not willing to do all the work. I'm only willing to do a little bit, and I'm sort of one foot in the door and one foot out. So I have a saying that I use, and I've just started to use it publicly now, which is dream life or bust. And the idea is I'm
Dream
either
life
going to,
or bust.
exactly. And it's like, I'm either going to achieve my dream life, which is me having absolutely everything that I want on my terms, no matter what it is. And if I don't, I'm going to die trying. And that's it. There's no other option for me. I have no backup plan. I have no, I'm going to do this instead. Like, no, it's not any of that. It's just, it's going to be on my terms. It's going to be exactly what I want, or I'm going to die trying. And that's it. So that's what I mean when I say all in. That's what I try to teach writers is like, just believe that you can have what you want. Because the thing that I think no one mentions or no one talks about is the fact that those really big goals and the really big dreams, you know, getting your book turned into a movie and, you know, whatever, those are things most people don't go after in life because they just don't believe it's possible. So really the goals that are harder to achieve are the mediocre ones that everybody's going after. Whereas the big goals are easier because if you just get the mindset that you can do it, like it's possible. And I've seen it happen. So it's so cool to just know that, like, just go after what you want, because what's the point of not, like, what is the point of living if you're not going to go after what you really want? So yeah, that's all in, that's dream life or bust.
Okay, so how do you whip your mind into shape to understand that it's dream life or bust, and you got to get your mind on track to get that dream life, because nothing else does.
Daily mindset practice. So every single day doing something to work on your mindset so that so like I have a practice that I do every morning. It's a 3-part practice, but it includes clearing out I say clearing out the crap. So basically just letting your mind sort of just spill out on a page. So writing freestyle, whatever comes out, just sort of getting the junk out of the way so that the good ideas and the focus and the positive stuff can come through. And then there's the setting intentions. So it's really like writing your reality. So figuring out what you want your life to be like, and then writing about it.
Back up. Walk us through the practice.
Sure. Yeah. So, okay. The first thing is you freestyle journal. So you literally just get your journal or a piece of paper or something, and you just freestyle write until you have nothing else to say. If you want to do it timed, because I know people are busy, so I have a timed version that's 10 minutes. You do 3 minutes of the freestyle journaling, and then you stop when the timer goes off. And then you actually move to the next phase, which is the setting intentions. So you're actually saying, okay, what are the goals I have right now? Or what do I want to create for my life? And then you just write about it in present tense like it's already true. I am a best-selling author. I have my dream house. I have whatever. And then you actually do, so I have that one for 3 minutes as well. So you set that for 3 minutes. And then you do a 4-minute visualization where you're basically just closing your eyes and imagining all the stuff you just wrote about is already true. And you're just seeing what your life would look like, feeling what it would feel like to have that life already. And then just go into your day, and that's it. And you just do it first thing in the morning every day. And it literally can change your life. I've been doing this practice. I mean, I've had different versions, but for 2 years straight now. And I mean, the magic that has come to life is just like, it's insane. And I know it's from the mindset. It's because I haven't done anything else different. That's it. Like I've been working on the same goals, having the same, skills and all that stuff. I haven't changed any of that. All I've changed is the mindset and the belief that it's possible. And that's it.
I mean, so this is awesome. Corey, what do you say to like the naysayers, the people that hear Jennifer say this and they say, that's like really woo-woo, that doesn't make any sense. How does, doing something in your head make a difference in your actual life if you're not actually changing your strategy or marketing your art better or whatever? What do you say?
So there is you do need to have the right strategy, right? Like business, you do need to find the right audience, and you need to have the right marketing strategy, blah, 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 blah. But there is some really solid science behind what she's talking about. And there's several books. I was actually just thinking while we were sitting here talking, I read about that in a book. There's a book called The Artist Way, which is like old school. Yeah, there's an old school book called The Artist Way. Old school, it's not that old. But,
it's like 20 years, a little more than that.
Yeah. But she talks about, in that book, she talks about the morning pages practice that you outline. So artists have been following that for, 20 years. And beyond that, so Carol Dweck has a book called Mindset, where she talks specifically about some of she calls it a growth mindset versus a fixed mindset. And so I love this book because she spent 20 years researching the science of mindset and the psychology of mindset. And a fixed mindset is people who say, well, I'm smart, or I'm dumb, or I know how to do this, or I don't know how to do this.
Or I'm a starving artist. I'm starving.
Right. Where a growth mindset is, I don't know how to do this, but I'm going to figure it out. Or I can learn how to do this. right? Or I have the ability to achieve this. And it seems small, but it really opens up what you're able to do. Because if you think you can't do something, you won't try to do it.
Oh,
right?
that's sad.
Yeah. And I catch myself doing it all the time. Right. And it just, that mindset stuff just changes even as you level up in business. Like, over the winter in December, I was hanging out in Orlando with my mastermind group, and we've got 10 people who are, varying levels of very successful artists or business people. And we spent 2 days just talking about mindset and like mental health, and just talking about all of the challenges that come up in business, because the tactical stuff and the strategic stuff is pretty easy to learn. There's lots and lots of information on it out there, and a lot of it is just try and fail. I do this and it works, and then you move on to the next thing and it either works or it doesn't. But mindset is really, it's sort of insidious, because you may not know that you're limiting yourself, because there may be things you're able to do that you don't think you can do. And so we spent a lot of time talking about that stuff in our last get together, and we're getting together again in June. And I'm really excited to see what comes out of that, because so much of what we do in life is limited by what we think we can or can't do.
Yeah, I think that's so, so important. And I mean, I love this idea that you're in a mastermind with people who are successful, and this is what you're all talking about. Because I also think there's this idea that once you reach success, then you don't need to worry about it.
Right. Yeah.
I mean, if you're comfortable where you are, right? Like if you're making X amount of money and that's enough for everything you need, then great. But if you want more, or you feel like you are capable of providing more or having a bigger impact, then you might need to change the way you think about what you're doing.
So Ulysses, how do you see that? You work with a lot of basically influencers who've reached a certain level of success. Do you see them kind of staying complacent, or do you see them pushing to kind of improve their mindset to change?
A pattern that I've noticed is like progress is very addicting. So once you start, making it, once you've reached a level of success, and then you keep going, it's like, even for me, and I'm pretty sure I can speak for many of us, is like when we're doing really great in life, it's really easy to keep going for more. People stop, or they get complacent when it gets tough. So a lot of these big guys that are doing like amazing things, it's very addicting to them. So they'll want more. They'll try different things. They'll keep doing it over and over, and they'll also outsource a lot of stuff. So that way they don't have to do it themselves, and they still reap the benefits. So I don't see too many successful people becoming complacent, at least not in my experience. And I see them, like, once they're hitting their goals, they just keep going for more and more. And and me too. I do the same thing. I think I get complacent when things are going great, but then things get tough. Then sometimes I want to stop, just because like I don't want to deal with it, or I'm not in the mood to. So,
yeah. And there's like seasons, right? Like you don't it's not go all the time. You go through cycles, or at least I have, right?
Mm-hmm.
You go through cycles. I go through cycles where sometimes I'm pushing really hard, and sometimes I'm just like, I'm going to enjoy this for a little while.
And I think that's super valuable and super important, because you can't push all the time. If you push all the time, then you burn out and you crash, and you don't get to that. Well, it's that whole thing of exercise, right? You push your muscle, and then it's okay, and then it can do greater things the next day, that sort of thing. So Jennifer, what about when you're working with authors or with other authors you've worked with? How do you sort of keep them yearning to continually level up, I guess you can say, instead of just sort of reaching a plateau once they've reached maybe that, one thing that they've been speaking about when they've been doing affirmations or writing down their intentions or whatever it might be?
I mean, I think the good thing about multi-passionate people, which is who I work with, they always want more. They always have another hobby, another interest, another thing they want to learn how to do, or, so there really isn't that level of like, I achieved this, I'm done. Like, there's always, I want more. Like the people I work with are like, I see myself having a huge catalog of books and, you know, writing for the rest of my life and doing all these things. So, so there really isn't that, but a lot of the people I work with are beginners as far as like, they're just sort of getting their first novel finished or getting their first, or they're struggling with that procrastination, or, you know, they've just their whole life put off this dream they had to be a writer. And now that they're retiring or getting ready to retire, all of a sudden they're like, oh my God, like and not to be sort of like morbid, but they're like, my life is almost over. Like I need to do something now. And part of what I do is try to wake people up earlier, you know, like sort of just get them to see that like, just start now. Like you don't have to wait until you have the perfect conditions or you're retired or you have whatever, like just start now and just do a little at a time. You know, that's the whole thing. Mindset is great. And like what Corey was saying, it's great, but there's still the other piece of you have to take action. You can't just sit in your, you know, room and write in your journal and think your life's going to just unfold the way you want it to. Like you still have to take action. But the way I see it, and it's sort of what he was saying, was that when you have that mindset, or when you work on your mindset every day and you program these new beliefs into yourself, you're more willing to do the work because you believe that it's possible. If you don't, you're not going to do it. You're just going to just slack off and find excuses and procrastinate and whatever. So I don't know if this is really answering the question, but that the people I work with don't really hit that, I would say, because they're always like, oh, I just finished my first book. It's time to do the next one. It's time to do the next thing. So I guess I'm lucky. Maybe I just attract the right people to work with. They just want more. And that would just speak of good marketing, obviously, just having the right target audience and all of that. Because that definitely wasn't always the case, you know, but it definitely is now. So maybe it's also myself having up-leveled enough to where I have a certain level of belief. And so I attract those people now because of that. I don't know. So, but yeah, I mean, I've always wanted more. And I think that's why people who want more, you know, kind of like to work with me. So.
I love it. Corey, kind of to when we're getting close to closing up, are there some things that you think that people can do today to sort of help them rethink the way they think about kind of abundance?
Sure, there's always something you can do. I would recommend everybody go read Carol's book. There's also Gail Hendricks' book, The Big Leap.
Oh, that's a great book.
Yeah, The Big Leap is a good one, which for those who haven't read it, mostly talks about, she calls it the upper limit problem, which is basically when you hit a ceiling in your growth and you're not going beyond your limits, it's usually because there's some sort of belief that you have about yourself or about what you're doing that means that you can't grow beyond that level. Sort of like how a goldfish grows to the size of the container that it's in. So that's a good one. But I love Jennifer's suggestion, and Ulysses said this too, of constantly having things that you're saying to yourself, affirmations, whatever you want to call them, to continue to push yourself. And for myself, like I used to do the affirmation thing a lot, and I don't so much do like things that I repeat to myself anymore, as I spend time each day just sort of reconnecting with my long-term vision and saying, you know, is this where I want to be? Does it still bring me joy? And if that's true, then I just carry on. And if it's not true, then I take a look at it and say, what needs to change? I just killed a project this morning because I've been avoiding it for 2 weeks and realized that I was avoiding it because I didn't want to do it. And so I emailed the guy that I was working with on the project and said, I'm not going to do this. And that was early stages, so it wasn't that big of a deal. But I think you just have to pay attention to what your soul or your spirit is telling you.
I love it. Ulysses, what do you think that some folks watching this today can be thinking about today if they want to start, you know, considering the way that mindset can affect their success?
Yeah, I'm going to go back to what Jennifer said, because I used to do that all the time. I didn't do the Freestyle Journal, which I'm probably going to incorporate that, but I always set my intentions for the day. And then after that, I put time aside to visualize where I want to be and the fact that I'm like already there. Because if I set the intentions, then I'm pretty much, you know, my day has purpose. And then if I'm visualizing myself already there, then it brings that much more motivation in my life to actually accomplish those things. And it's not so much like, I think setting the intentions part is like a mindset thing, but once you visualize, it's a heart thing. and you need to get your heart in it as just as much as, you have it in your head that you're going to do it. So those two things really, really help out. And I'm glad Jennifer said that, because I totally forgot about that. And I used to do that a lot. And that helped me get to where I'm at today.
Something else, can I just add, is their idea of acting as if, which you may have heard that before, but it's the idea of like, if you know what you want, then you work backwards to be like, okay, if I already had this thing, if I already achieved this goal, what would I be doing? How would I be acting? How would I be thinking every day? And so I tell people, especially my writers, to say, what would a pro writer do, basically? Is, okay, if I was already a professional writer, if I already had the book deal, the whatever, how would I be showing up in the world? Like, well, I probably wouldn't wear my pajamas all day. I would probably get dressed, because a person who's successful doesn't probably stay in, I mean, okay, you know what I'm saying? It's just the idea of okay, and that was just an example. Each person is different. I do stay in my pajamas sometimes, but it's a choice. It's not like I'm doing it because I feel like I'm not successful, so I have to just like not show up to people. I do it on the days where I feel like this is just what I feel like doing today. Exactly. Big difference. Big difference. So maybe clothes wasn't a great example, but you know what I'm saying? It's the idea of like, you know, when you want something, it's like, okay, well, for example, I was like, okay, well, I want to be a best-selling author. This was a year ago when I wasn't yet. So I was like, okay, well, best-selling author is going to, first of all, have more books out probably. Because at the time I'd only had a couple of books out, and it was like, okay, well, if I want to be a best-selling author, I'm going to have to write more books. So last year I wrote 9 books and put them out. And so like, of course, one of them was going to hit, and actually 2 of them did, which was cool.
Of course.
So, but it's just the point of like, that's a way of thinking, that people who don't believe they can be a best-selling author, they don't do that. Like, they don't even think, oh, I need to, do that next step, or I need to take that extra action. And it just came from that mindset of like, if I was already there, this is what I would be doing right now. So acting as if was huge for me with the mindset, the combination of the mindset and the action.
I love this. This has been so valuable, and I love all the tactical stuff. I'd love to just hear, kind of in closing, where folks can find out more about what each of you guys are really working on right now. I don't know, Jennifer, you want to start?
Yeah, sure. Well, if you are interested in the mindset practice that I talked about, I wrote a book called Journal Your Writing Dreams to Life, which walks you through the whole practice. And there's even a companion journal where you can do the practice right in the journal. You can find me at jenniferblanchard.net if you want to check out. I blog every single day and just share everything that I can to help writers to just cut off years of their learning curve, so they don't have to spend 20 years trying to get to the point where I'm at, because it's a waste. You can do it so much faster. So that's a big thing. And I also live stream pretty much every day. So if you go to my Facebook, facebook.com/JenniferBlanchardWrites, check out my show, Dream Life or Bust, which is the name of the live stream show.
That's awesome.
Yeah. So that's where you can find me.
Awesome. Ulysses, what about you?
I'm always on Facebook. So if you ever want to connect, just look up on Facebook, Ulysses Osuna, and just message me, and most likely I'll get back to you. But if you want to find out more about like getting media exposure, you can always go to my website, influencerpress.com.
Awesome. And Corey?
Yeah, if you are a visual artist, painter, sculptor, or if you make some kind of work that might show up in an art gallery and you want to learn more about selling art, then hit me up at theabundantartist.com. That's where we do all things art related. And if you have any other questions, probably friend me on Facebook.
Awesome, guys. This was so, so, so valuable. Really, really appreciate it, and hope you have a great day.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. You too.
Thanks.
Bye.
Bye.